The conference room fell silent as the oak door creaked open. Marcus Chen, CEO of Chen Industries, looked up from his tablet, expecting his 10 o'clock candidate. Instead, a small girl in a rumpled school uniform stood in the doorway, clutching a worn manila folder against her chest. She couldn't have been more than 8 years old. Marcus blinked twice, certain his eyes were playing tricks on him. The morning had already been long, back-to-back interviews since 7, each candidate blending into the next with their rehearsed answers and polished smiles. But this was unexpected. "I'm sorry, sweetheart, but I think you're in the wrong place," Marcus said gently, setting down his tablet and glancing at his assistant Jennifer, who stood frozen by the door, her clipboard hanging limply at her side. Jennifer looked equally bewildered, her mouth slightly open as if the word she needed had simply vanished. The girl didn't move. She stood there, small and determined, her black Mary Jane scuffed at the toes, white knee socks sliding down her thin legs. Her school uniform, a navy blue jumper over a white blouse, looked hastily thrown on, the collar slightly askew. But it was her eyes that caught Marcus's attention. Those dark, serious eyes held something he rarely saw anymore in his world of corporate meetings and calculated risks. Pure, unfiltered determination mixed with barely concealed terror. She took a step forward, her chin raised despite the fear flickering in those expressive eyes. Her small hand gripped the folder tighter, knuckles white against the manila surface. "Mr. Chen, I'm here for my mom, Sarah Lynn. She has the interview at 10, but she's sick. Really sick. She's been preparing for weeks, studying every night after I went to bed, and her voice cracked slightly, and she paused to swallow hard. I couldn't let her miss this chance." Marcus felt something shift in his chest. He'd been in business for 30 years, built Chen Industries from a garage startup to a Fortune 500 company, and he'd learned to read people in seconds. This child wasn't lost. She wasn't confused. She was on a mission. He exchanged glances with Jennifer, who had finally closed her mouth and now looked at him with raised eyebrows, silently asking what to do. They both knew the situation wasn't in any HR handbook. Marcus's mind raced through the morning schedule. Sarah Lynn. The name triggered immediate recognition. Single mother. Impressive resume that had caught his eye weeks ago. 10 years of marketing experience at a competitor before a 3-year gap. 3 years unemployed while caring for her ill daughter who just recovered from leukemia. He'd read her file twice, made notes in the margins, circled her references. Something about her cover letter had resonated with him. The honesty, the raw vulnerability of explaining her employment gap, the fierce determination that bled through every word. "What's your name?" Marcus asked, his voice softer now. He stood up from his chair, wanting to meet this small warrior at a more equal level, though even standing, his 6-foot frame dwarfed her tiny presence. Emma Lynn. She walked forward with careful, measured steps and placed the folder on the glossy conference table with trembling hands. The folder made a soft sound against the polished wood, and Marcus noticed it was covered in colorful stickers, unicorns, rainbows, stars, a child's touch on something clearly important. "Mom doesn't know I'm here. She's home with pneumonia, lying in bed, crying because she thinks she lost a shot. She's been crying all morning, and I couldn't stand it anymore. But I memorized everything. I know her qualifications. I know why she's perfect for this job. I can tell you everything she would have said." Marcus felt Jennifer move closer, her professional instincts warring with human curiosity. The room felt different now, charged with an energy that had nothing to do with business and everything to do with something far more fundamental, a daughter's love for her mother. "Emma," Marcus said, pulling out a chair and gesturing for her to sit. She climbed onto it, her feet dangling several inches above the floor. He sat down across from her, not at the head of the table where he usually commanded interviews, but directly across, making this a conversation between equals. "How did you get here?" "Bus," Emma said simply. "Mom keeps bus fare in the cookie jar for emergencies. I know which number to take. She practiced the route with me last week, going over the directions at breakfast every morning. She was so nervous about today. She kept saying this was a chance, that you were the only CEO who actually read applications personally, who gave people second chances." Emma's voice grew stronger as she spoke, the initial tremor fading. "She said you built your company because you believed in people, not just profits." Marcus felt those words hit him squarely in the chest. That had been his philosophy, his driving force through decades of business decisions. Somewhere along the way, through mergers and acquisitions and quarterly reports, he wondered if he'd lost sight of that. Here was a child, essentially holding up a mirror to his own stated values. "Your mother told you that?" he asked. She tells me everything, Emma said, and there was such simple trust in those words that Marcus felt his throat tighten. When I was sick, when I was in the hospital getting treatments, she'd sit by my bed and tell me stories about the business world, about people like you who built something from nothing. She said work wasn't just about money. It was about purpose. About making something that mattered. Emma opened the folder carefully, revealing neatly organized papers, tabs color-coded, pages marked with sticky notes covered in a woman's careful handwriting. She prepared so hard for this. Every night after dinner, after helping me with homework, she'd sit at our kitchen table reviewing your company's history, your campaigns, your market position. She has ideas, Mr. Chen. Really good ideas. Jennifer had moved to stand behind Marcus now, and he could feel her presence, could sense her emotional investment in this moment. His assistant had been with him for 15 years and had never once interjected in an interview. But he knew her well enough to recognize the sharp intake of breath, the soft sound that meant she was fighting tears. Marcus leaned back in his leather chair, studying the determined little face before him. Emma sat straighter now, her fear transforming into something else, advocacy. She was here to fight for her mother, and she wasn't backing down. In her eyes, he saw the same fire he'd once had, the same refusal to accept defeat that had driven him to risk everything on a dream 30 years ago. The morning light streamed through the floor-to-ceiling windows, casting long shadows across the conference table. Outside, the city hummed with its usual Friday morning energy, people rushing to meetings, deals being made, careers being built or broken. But in this room, time seemed to have paused for something more important than any business transaction. Marcus made a decision. It went against protocol, against every HR guideline Jennifer would probably cite later. But some moments transcended policy. He folded his hands on the table and looked directly at Emma. All right, Emma. I'm listening. Tell me why your mother is perfect for this job. Emma's entire body seemed to relax for just a moment, relief washing over her features before she straightened her spine and became all business. She pulled the folder closer, opening it with the careful reverence of someone handling something precious. Marcus noticed her hands had stopped trembling. Mom has 10 years of experience in digital marketing, Emma began, her voice taking on a practiced quality that suggested she'd rehearsed this, perhaps in front of a mirror or while riding the bus. She worked at Morrison & Associates before I got sick. She was their top campaign manager for 3 years running. She increased their client retention by 42% and brought in 8 major accounts that are still with them today. Marcus leaned forward, genuinely intrigued. The statistics matched what he'd read in Sarah's application, but hearing them delivered by this earnest 8-year-old added a dimension no resume could capture. She left Morrison when I was diagnosed with leukemia, Emma continued, and Marcus saw her fingers tighten briefly on the folder's edge before she pressed on. Not because she wanted to, but because I needed her. The treatments were every week, sometimes twice a week, and I was so scared, Mr. Chen. So scared. And Mom, Emma's voice wavered but didn't break. Mom was there for every single appointment, every single treatment, every single night I couldn't sleep because I felt sick or worried I was going to die. Jennifer made a small sound behind Marcus, and he felt his own chest constrict. The corporate world he inhabited rarely touched on such raw human experiences. People brought him problems about market share and profit margins, not stories of survival and sacrifice. But she never stopped working, not really, Emma said, flipping to a page marked with a pink sticky note. See, Mom kept learning. Even in hospital waiting rooms, she'd have her laptop, taking online courses. She got certified in data analytics, social media strategy, and content marketing. All while I was getting better. She has the certificates, they're all here. Emma spread out several printed certificates across the table, each one representing hours of study stolen from moments of fear and exhaustion. Marcus picked one up, examining it. Advanced Digital Marketing Analytics from Stanford Online. Completed 8 months ago. The dedication that required, especially under such circumstances, spoke volumes about Sarah Lynn's character. Mom says the marketing world changed while she was away, Emma continued, her confidence growing with each word. She says companies now need to connect with real people, not just sell products. She told me about your company, how you started Chen Industries because you wanted to make technology accessible to everyone, not just people with money. She believes in that. She has ideas about how to tell that story better. Ideas? Marcus asked, his business instincts fully engaged now. What kind of ideas? Emma's face lit up, and suddenly she was just an enthusiastic child sharing something exciting. Okay, So Mom noticed that all your competitors focus their campaigns on innovation and being first to market, right? But she says Chen Industries is different. You've always been about making things people can actually use, things that make life better. She thinks your marketing should show real stories, like teachers using your tablets in classrooms, or grandparents video calling their grandchildren for the first time, or people like her who took online courses to rebuild their careers. Marcus felt a chill run down his spine. Sarah Lynn had identified exactly what his marketing team had been struggling with for the past year. They'd been trying to compete with flashier competitors by matching their innovation-focused messaging, but it had felt hollow, disconnected from Chen Industries' core mission. What Emma was describing, what Sarah had envisioned, was a return to their foundational values. She has a whole campaign planned, Emma said, pulling out several more papers covered in detailed notes, hand-drawn mock-ups, and market research data. She calls it technology with heart. She researched all your products and matched them with real user stories. She found testimonials online from your customers, people who really love what you make, and she built sample campaigns around their experiences. Emma pushed the papers toward Marcus. She stayed up 3 nights in a row finishing these. I heard her typing after I went to bed, and when I got up for water, she was still working. Marcus examined the materials, his experienced eye quickly assessing their quality. They were good. Better than good. They were exactly what Chen Industries needed. The mock-ups were rough, but the concepts were solid. The messaging was authentic, emotional without being manipulative, and perfectly aligned with the company's values. Sarah Lynn hadn't just prepared for an interview. She'd essentially created a roadmap for revitalizing their entire marketing approach. Your mom made all of this? He asked, looking up at Emma. Every single page, Emma said proudly. She showed me some of it and explained what she was doing. That's how I memorized it. She practices by teaching me. Mom says if you can explain something to a kid, you really understand it. Marcus smiled at that wisdom. Your mother sounds like a very smart woman. She's the smartest person I know, Emma said without hesitation. And the hardest working. When I was sick, she worked every job she could find that let her be with me. Freelance writing, online surveys, tutoring kids over video calls. She never complained, not once. She'd sit with me during my treatments and tell me about all the things we'd do when I got better, all the places we'd go. She promised me we'd go to the beach, and we did. Last summer, after the doctor said I was in remission, we spent a whole day building sandcastles and collecting shells. The image Emma painted was so vivid, so full of love and determination, that Marcus found himself transported from his polished conference room to that beach, watching a mother and daughter celebrate a hard-won victory over disease and despair. But now money's really tight, Emma said, her voice dropping. Mom's been applying everywhere, but nobody wants to hire someone with a 3-year gap, even when she explains why. They see the gap and just throw away her application. She's been rejected 17 times. I know because she keeps the rejection emails in a folder, and sometimes I see her reading them late at night, crying quietly so I won't hear. Emma's eyes glistened with unshed tears. But she never gives up. She tells me that giving up isn't an option, that we are fighters, that we survive something really hard and we can survive anything. Marcus felt the weight of those 17 rejections, each one representing a company that had failed to see the value in front of them, that had reduced a human being's worth to a gap in employment dates. He thought about his own journey, the times people had bet against him, the doors that had closed before he finally found someone willing to take a chance. Mom says you believe in second chances, Emma concluded, her voice steady and strong again. Your story, how you started with nothing and built all this, it's on your website. She read it to me. You said in an interview once that success isn't about never falling down, it's about getting back up every single time. Mom's gotten back up, Mr. Chen. She's ready. She just needs someone to believe in her the way people believed in you. Marcus sat in profound silence, Emma's words echoing in the space between them. He could hear the gentle hum of the building's ventilation system, the distant sound of phones ringing in offices down the hall, Jennifer's careful breathing behind him. But mostly, he heard the truth in Emma's plea, a truth that cut through every corporate barrier and business consideration to touch something fundamental about why he'd built Chen Industries in the first place. He'd built it for moments like this. For people like Sarah Lynn. For second chances and new beginnings. Marcus picked up his phone and dialed, his decision already made before the first ring.